Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, cut through the noise, and get right to the core ideas.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're really plunging into the work of Jose Domingo Sosa, Ph.D. We've got his article, The Importance of Human Animality, and also the poem that he includes right at the end of it.
Right, and Sosa's perspective is, well, it's quite distinct. He's a psychologist, but one who really leans into existential and phenomenological philosophy.
Okay.
So that means he's focusing heavily on lived experience, our actual being in the world. And that viewpoint is absolutely crucial for understanding how he approaches our embodied nature as humans.
Got it. So that background really shapes everything, which means for this deep dive, we've kind of got two main tracks we want to follow. First, we need to get a good handle on those philosophical underpinnings Sosa's working with, particularly that existential phenomenological angle.
Yeah.
And second, we really want to explore his poem. It seems like this powerful, almost visceral celebration of the sensual side of life.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what's great about Sosa's article is how it jumps right into this long-running tension in Western thought.
You mean the mind versus body thing?
Exactly. This historical habit of valuing our intellect, our spirit, often, by downplaying the body and the senses. It's a fundamental split.
Yep.
And Sosa argues it shaped us for centuries.
Okay, so let's unpack that historical divide then. Sosa takes us way back. He starts with Plato.
He does. Plato's philosophy of forms, well, it proposed this realm of perfect, eternal ideas, right?
Yeah.
Only accessible through reason.
Right, the abstract.
And Sosa points to Plato's metaphor, the body, as a prison for the soul. That's a really potent image.
Oh, yeah.
It shows how Plato viewed the physical body as basically a temporary obstacle, something hindering the soul's quest for true abstract knowledge. It really set up this hierarchy, intellect way up top.
A prison for the soul. Yeah, that definitely sticks with you. So if Plato was all about these abstract ideals, was there anyone pushing back at the time? Different view?
Oh, absolutely. Sosa contrasts him sharply with Epicurus. Epicurus, who was building on Democritus's ideas, had a much more, let's say, integrated view.
Oh, so?
Well, Epicurus thought both mind and body were just made of atoms. All our experiences came from their physical interactions. No separate, immortal soul floating around.
Okay.
The mind was intrinsically linked to the body.
So much more grounded, physically based. What was Epicurus aiming for, then, if not abstract forms?
Happiness, basically, defined primarily as the absence of suffering ataraxia. He emphasized meeting basic bodily needs, finding moderate, sustainable pleasure. That was the route to a good life.
Which sounds very different from Plato's focus on pure thought.
A stark contrast, yeah.
And yet, Sosa notes that Plato's view became dominant, hugely influential, right? He even quotes Nietzsche saying something like, history is just a side note to Plato.
Yeah, that's the quote.
What made Plato's ideas win out, so to speak?
Well, several things played into it, but Sosa really highlights the impact of Christianity later on. The Christian ideas of an immortal soul, the concept of the sinful body. These resonated strongly with Plato's dualism.
Oh, okay.
It helped solidify this idea that the spiritual realm was superior and the physical world, the body, was somehow lesser, maybe even corrupt.
So this Platonic and then Christian focus on the spiritual.
Yeah.
It really held sway for a long, long time. Sosa talks about a period of spiritual stagnation, he calls it, lasting right up until the Renaissance. What changed things?
It's a fascinating point Sosa makes. He credits the rediscovery in the 15th century of the writings of Lucretius.
Lucretius.
Yeah, writing way back around 70 BC. Lucretius was a big proponent of Epicurean thought. His major work of the nature of things, it put the body and our earthly life front and center.
So directly challenging the prevailing views.
Absolutely. It was a materialist perspective, suggesting we should look to the physical world, to nature, for answers. And Sosa argues this rediscovery really helped ignite the Renaissance spirit. It directly inspired key thinkers.
That's a really interesting connection. Sosa lists quite a few big names influenced by Lucretius, Copernicus, Galileo, Da Vinci.
Newton, Bacon.
Yeah. It sounds like reading Lucretius pushed them towards a new interest in the actual tangible world.
Exactly. Across different fields, science, art, philosophy, you see this shift towards observation, empirical evidence, understanding the physical world. It was a move away from purely abstract or theological explanations, much more aligned with that Epicurean focus on the tangible.
But this tension, this mind-body thing, it didn't just disappear with the Renaissance, did it? Sosa then brings Descartes into the picture.
Right. Fast forward to the 17th century, and you get Descartes trying to work out a kind of synthesis. His famous Cartesian dualism.
Mind versus body as distinct substances.
Correct. But importantly, unlike the purely theological dualism, Descartes' version actually, perhaps unintentionally, fueled scientific progress in a huge way.
How did it do that?
By framing the body as essentially a machine governed by physical laws separate from the non-material mind. This view made it conceptually easier to study the body objectively, scientifically.
Okay, so mind and body are separate. They interact somehow, but they are separate. Sosa points out, though, that even this scientific approach maintains a fundamental division, and there are modern critiques of this lingering separation, right?
Precisely. Many contemporary thinkers, and Sosa seems to agree, argue that this ongoing devaluation of the body, this sort of denial of our fundamental animality, has actually contributed to a lot of modern problems, like feelings of disconnection, existential angst.
Alienation from ourselves, essentially.
Yeah, alienation from a core part of our being, our lived physical sensory experience.
Which neatly brings us to the second major part of this, the idea of reclaiming that animality. Sosa brings in Martin Heidegger and Otto Rank, connecting them to the fear of death. How did that fit?
It's a really interesting link. Both Heidegger, the philosopher, and Rank, the psychologist, they saw our human fear of mortality as a big reason why we tend to deny our animal nature.
Because animals die.
Essentially, yes. Rank argued that because we're aware of our own death, we try to distance ourselves from our physical animal selves, which we subconsciously equate with that finite existence.
Yeah.
He had that striking phrase, something like, people reject the loan of life to avoid the debt of death.
Wow, that really hits home. And Heidegger, what was his angle?
Heidegger talked about our being towards death. His point wasn't morbid, though. He argued that by actually confronting, accepting the reality that our time is limited, we can live more authentically.
How does accepting death help?
By facing our finitude, paradoxically, we can more fully embrace our being in the world right now. And that absolutely includes embracing our embodied animal nature. It frees us up from certain kinds of denial.
So facing mortality lets us embrace, well, being alive in our bodies more fully. That's a powerful idea. Then Sosa introduces Melanie Challenger's work on reconnecting through our senses.
Yes, Challenger's argument is that our modern lives, often disconnected from the natural world, have kind of dulled our senses. We've become alienated from our own instincts or intuition.
Okay.
So she advocates for actively seeking out direct sensory experiences, really paying attention, trusting our gut feelings, valuing sensitivity. It's about bridging that gap, reconnecting with our fundamental animal selves through direct experience.
And this focus on direct experience, on the senses, it leads perfectly into Sosa's poem, doesn't it? He calls it a poetic affirmation of human animality.
Exactly. It feels like the experiential payoff to the article's argument.
Like the article lays out the intellectual case and the poem provides the feeling.
Precisely. It's a visceral sensory encounter. It celebrates the body not as a prison, but as the sacred space where the senses dwell, a place where even the sublime dances. That's a direct counter to that old Platonic view.
Let's dive into the poem a bit more then. Sosa puts a lot of emphasis on touch, on tactile sensations.
Oh, definitely. The poem is just full of images like soft touch, a passionate embrace, a delicate stroke. It highlights how these direct physical feelings awaken something deep, something beyond just words.
Like sensation itself is a kind of knowledge.
Yes, or perhaps a kind of wisdom. The poem talks about nerve endings receiving unparalleled delight, bathing the body in heavenly light. It's a strong affirmation of the body as a source of profound feeling, pleasure, and even beauty.
It's very evocative language. And the poem also connects the body's sensitivity to the natural world, right? Like Challenger suggested.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get lines about the whispers of breeze on the skin, the warmth of rays of sunshine, the touch of moonlight. These directly link sensory experience to the natural environment. The poem even says, by embracing the gifts of nature, the senses are skillfully aligned. It suggests this inherent harmony we can find through that sensory connection with the world around us.
And it feels like by focusing so intensely on the present moment, on the body's experience now, the poem kind of bypasses that fear of death we were talking about earlier.
That's a really sharp observation. I think you're right. By immersing itself so fully in the here and now sensations, the poem implicitly pushes aside anxieties about the future, about endings. It's purely a celebration of being alive, embodied in this moment. It's a lived counterpoint to abstract fears.
There are also these lines, quite beautiful, about the body being a canvas of dreams and a source of luminous experiences. That elevates the body beyond just biology, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests the body isn't just a physical container. It's the very place where our inner life, our imagination, our dreams are experienced and felt. Sosa uses phrases like sublime cellular sensation and talks about the symphony of life within the body.
So underlining the richness and complexity inherent in our physical being.
Exactly. It's presented as a source of wonder in itself.
Okay, so tying it all together, how does this poem really circle back and reinforce the philosophical points Sosa makes in the article?
Well, I see it as the lived proof, maybe. The article makes the intellectual case for valuing our animality, challenging that historical split. The poem demonstrates it. It uses vivid sensory language to embody the argument.
Ah, okay.
It powerfully lands Sosa's point that, quote, much of life's true art is in the body and not in the knowledge of the body.
Mm.
It's about the direct experience, not just the abstract understanding.
Right, thinking about the body versus being in the body.
Precisely.
And Sosa wraps up the article by reminding us that, despite all our technology, all our complex thought, we are still fundamentally animals, mortal animals.
Yes, and he insists that our bodies have their own kind of intelligence. They aren't just passive machines. They're a source of beauty, meaning wisdom in their own right. The poem serves as this beautiful, almost lyrical illustration of that inherent intelligence and richness found in embodied life.
Okay, so let's try to summarize our deep dive into Sosa's work. We've traced this historical tension, mind versus body. We've looked at philosophical arguments from Epicurus to Heidegger and Challenger, all pushing for an embrace of our animality. And then we have Sosa's poem acting as this powerful artistic confirmation of the value of the sensual, the embodied experience of being human.
Exactly. Through both his reasoning and his poetry, Sosa is really pushing us to rethink our relationship with our own bodies, with our senses, to move away from a purely head-centric existence toward something more integrated, more fully alive in the world.
Which leaves us with a final thought, really, for you, our listener. Building on that idea, Sosa highlights the art in the body. In a world that constantly seems to push the intellectual, the virtual, the abstract, how might intentionally, consciously engaging with your senses?
Really feeling the world.
Yeah. How might really paying attention to what you see, hear, touch, taste, smell? How might that genuinely enrich your understanding? Not just of the world around you, but of yourself. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what we might be missing by living so much just inside our own heads?
It certainly does. It's definitely worth reflecting on, maybe even exploring some of these thinkers, Sosa, Challenger, Heidegger, Lucretius, a bit further. There's a lot there about what it means to be fully physically human.